Travel Channel. We're a team of experts on the hunt for Bigfoot.
This is old legend meets modern day technology.
We have the most sophisticated mapping technologies to help us pinpoint Bigfoot activity. This new algorithm is going to be key.
This is the place.
The hell have we just found?
It doesn't match any other known species.
Oh my God.
All new series Expedition Bigfoot starts Sunday, December 8th at 10 on Travel Channel and Travel Channel Go.
Hello everyone, Happy New Year. I hope everything's going good for you guys in this new year. I thought in this video we could have a open discussion about Expedition Bigfoot. I'm sure we're all following the show pretty closely since it aired a few weeks ago. After the first episode, I had some opinions, but I wanted to wait until we were a few episodes in before I made a judgment call on the show. I do have a few things to discuss about it, and but first of all, I just want to make it clear that I'm not making this video to attack this show. I'm actually pretty much enjoying the show for the most part. It is entertaining, but I do have a few things to kind of slightly pick apart, and everything I'm going to say, this is just my opinion. So let's just get into it, shall we? Well, the main reason that I am watching this show is because of one person in the show, and that is Russell Accord. Now, I had a chance to meet Russell a couple years ago at a convention in Spokane Valley, and he introduced me to Bob Gimlin. So here's a little picture of us, and there's me talking to Bob. To the left is Adam Davis, and right behind me is Russell Accord packing up all the stuff at the end of the day. So had a chance to meet him and talk to him for a couple minutes, and I really respect everything he's doing for Bob Gimlin, and recording his life and documenting everything about Bob and his Bigfoot experience back at Bluff Creek. So I have the utmost respect for Russell, and really looking forward to see where he goes from this. But there are a few issues I have with the show so far, and I just want to point some of those out. And like I said, these are just my opinions. So let's dive into the first thing, shall we? So I've been following the show, but I've also been following the social media sites. And it looks like the fan base is kind of like 50-50. You got some that are just loving the show and everything that they're finding and presenting. And then there's the other half who are like, yeah, this is not cool, and they just don't like it. But there's a small percentage of people who are asking a lot of questions, especially about the findings and some of the techniques that these guys are going through and doing. And one thing I've noticed on the social media sites is that when people are asking these questions, or they have doubts about something, they seem to be getting attacked or criticized by the people who are true lovers of the show. And I find that kind of interesting, because these people are asking questions and they get attacked for asking simple questions that we're all kind of seeing. And I just find it kind of odd that people are sharing their thoughts about the show, and if it's not positive, they seem to get attacked or criticized. And I'm just wondering, are we so desperate to believe in a show that is about Bigfoot that we get to a point that we don't question anything about it? We just take everyone's word on, yep, that's all from Bigfoot. If you want true answers, you need to ask the tough questions. You should keep an open mind. Everyone should keep an open mind through all of this, but not at the cost of just accepting what someone says. in my opinion, true discovery comes from asking questions. If no question is brought up, then there is no discussion. If there is no discussion, then there is no possibility to understand what is being presented to us. So you gotta ask the questions. You gotta be critical of every finding that you come across. I criticize everything that I find. If I get excited over something, my partners are like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa! Wait a second. Let's look at it from this point of view. What else could it be? And vice versa." So I mean, every time we're out there in the field, we're trying to find an explanation on why it's not Bigfoot. And I think that's kind of lacking in this show just a bit. So this scene right here kind of like rubbed me the wrong way. The drama they built up on this.
One thing that's clear, the further we move into this forest, the more ominous it gets, the creepier this all starts to feel.
I'm not even going to comment about the lantern.
What? What is this? What the hell have we just found? What is this?
6.5 miles from base camp.
Look at this.
Dr. Maria Mayer discovers a dilapidated structure.
This is how they'd build these cabins 150, 170 years ago. So bizarre to have a structure like this so way out here.
So bizarre. So bizarre that we have found so many old homesteads on hikes. I mean, it's just almost common knowledge that you're going to run into a old cabin or shack out in the woods somewhere, especially in our area. So for them to build up the drama and her to be so shocked about this, it just baffled me. Like, of course there's going to be an old cabin out in the woods. Homesteaders did that kind of stuff way back then. And you can see here a few pictures of some of the homesteads that we found. In my opinion, when you find something, especially in the woods, you shouldn't jump to the conclusion that it is done by Bigfoot. This picture here is the A-frame stick structure that Russell found, and he said that he believes this is very special and this was placed there just because it's a A-frame and it didn't look natural. Well, so I went through some old videos that I've recorded, and A-frame falls are pretty common in the woods. This is just one quick example I have. Definitely A-shaped. Definitely, trees falling over. I'm sure I could have found the root systems, even though he said there was no root systems, which I believe him. But they just didn't seem very large to be trees. I mean, things fall in the woods all the time, and they form some really strange patterns. Take this one for example. I found this on a hike. I just thought it was cool looking. There was no Bigfoot related to this. It was just, a bunch of limbs that fell to the ground. Let's talk about the nest, shall we?
Now that is interesting. That is some strange stuff.
Maybe not.
Does that smell gamey to you?
Smells like raw meat.
I can possibly
It's not just a
explain
downed
that.
tree. The top of this thing has branches almost like they were placed here. There was no way it could have naturally fallen there. It wasn't all the branches fell in the same direction. They were literally placed in separate directions to actually provide cover. This looks like a structure to hide under. I could literally lay inside there. This is a nest. I feel like I walked right into the living room and the kettle is still hot. It was just here. It can't be that far away.
Let's throw out one theory about the possible smell that they're experiencing.
The next morning, my boyfriend, he went back out into where we were showering, and it reeked to high heaven.
Really?
Yeah, the worst smell ever. He said that it was just like a rotting animal smell.
There's so many.
Does that smell gamey to you?
It smells like raw meat.
So one possible theory that we have, a while back, my wife and I were hiking in an area, and all of a sudden we were just engulfed in this really nasty smell, and it was just overpowering, and the wind shifted, and all of a sudden the smell was gone, and then it came back, and it kind of creeped us out at first until we realized when we turned the corner there was tons of mushrooms, and these mushrooms just reeked to high heaven. So it's possibly, they could be smelling mushrooms, especially the stinkhorn mushroom, which is usually popping up out of the ground or just about to during this time period of the year throughout Washington and in Oregon. And people have reported that these things smell really bad. So, I mean, it's a possibility that they could be smelling mushrooms, or could be just that bird, you know, laying there rotting away. But I mean, it's a possibility to consider when you're investigating stuff like this. So let's take a closer look at this possible nest that they found. First thing I don't like about it is we're not really getting a good scale size comparison of this thing. The video camera is really low to the ground to kind of give it some height. I'd like to see from all different angles. I like to see what it looks like from behind. I like to see someone actually standing right next to it. That would help a lot. It doesn't look quite big enough for something the size of a Sasquatch to be taking shelter in. I would have liked to see Russell crawl in there and demonstrate how big it was inside. If this was actually a shelter of some sort, I also don't find this very strange to find in the woods. For example, we have found a lot of shelter type structures like this scattered about, and well, let me present this type of evidence to you guys and see what you guys think. Here is an example of a structure, one of several that we found in this area that we came across, and it is large enough for a man to crawl into it. Got a little excited at first when we saw it, but then after examining the area, we found several more very similar to it. Some a little bit different, but they all mostly look like this. Check this out. Now, most of our area that we live in here in Stevens County, the U.S. military trains does a lot of survival training throughout the mountains and forests of our area, and this is one thing that they do is learn to make shelters, and we have found tons of these all over the place, all man-made. This is definitely a man-made shelter because we found several of them very similar to each other. Now, you got to consider this as a possibility when you find a shelter or a structure out in the woods. It could be like a sniper blind for a hunter. Looks like torn off bark. Like I said, we found tons of these all over the place. A lot of sign of axes and saws being used on these things. And they're definitely man-made. Now, what's interesting about our area is that we know that the military is training out there. We know the general areas where they're doing this. They post signs every time they're out there. So I looked up the military training area for Oregon, and it lies in the central part of the state, pretty much where this TV show is being filmed. So if the military is training in Central Oregon on survival trainings, there's a very good chance that you're probably going to find structures left by the military. So with Russell being a survivalist, you would think he might be able to identify a shelter that could be man-made. But I mean, it could be a Bigfoot nest, who knows? But I'm leaning more towards man-made structure, and I have a little more evidence to kind of point that way in the next couple pictures ahead. I found these photographs on a Facebook post posted by a viewer from the show who snapped off a few shots of the so-called nest, and it appears to be some straight angle cuts on some of the branches, which would kind of push towards a man-made structure unless Bigfoot's running around with a saw or a hatchet out there. But these breaks do look pretty straight to me, and most likely I'm going to say that this was man-made, and the possibility of other structures like this in an area that is being used by the United States military for training purposes. They're probably going to find a lot more stuff like this. So these are just a few shots of shelters that have been made by the military and by other survivalists. And these are all factors that should be considered when you're doing Bigfoot research. And you need to question everything and analyze everything and look for every possibility besides just Bigfoot. Because we're not going to get any true answers until we start actually analyzing and criticizing and just stripping away every little detail until there's just nothing but evidence that points towards Bigfoot. So these are just my thoughts and opinions. So let me know what you guys think and what you guys think of the show. And I'm going to continue watching. The last episode, they got some eye shine, so I'm looking forward to seeing that. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what they have on thermal. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll catch you guys later.